Well, our lieutenant had volunteered myself and Bo to my friend Bo, the poor bastard, to go out in front of to the front of the positions where we had set up trenches, or the grunts had set up trenches, with a radio to see whether or not there were any enemy that were going to attack us overnight, because that was the fear, that they would come in and attack us overnight. And so Bo and I, they stopped the illumination rounds, and we crawled out maybe 300 yards or so, 200 yards into the area where the jungle became really thick. And we separated ourselves by about 50 yards, and we waited in in small holes that we had sort of scriggled into underneath some bushes, and we were waiting to see whether we could hear anybody. Well, at this point we were exhausted. It had been we hadn't slept in about at least 2 days, and we were just beat, and trying to stay awake in that nice, soft, warm, humid sand that we were laying in was very, very difficult. I was taking my K-bar and jabbing it into my hand to try to stay awake, and I looked over, and Bo, it seemed like to me like he was sound asleep. Well, I hate to malign him, but in the morning, when I went over to him, there he was. He was sound asleep. Well, I called up and I said, Bo, I told the lieutenant, we're coming back through the lines. I was afraid more than anything that the grunts would see movement out there and start shooting at us. It was a terrible position between the enemy and the grunts. And here we are right between them, doing what? If we had opened up on the enemy, they would have annihilated us, these two guys out in the middle of nowhere with no protection. And probably the grunts, seeing the activity, would have opened up with their machine guns. Well, fortunately, none of that happened. I did see a single soldier, I thought, walking around, sort of the perimeter there, very quietly, the way that we moved. But whether that was my imagination or not, it was I can't swear. It was a pretty. At that point, I was pretty well out of it. So anyway, the next day we moved back to the trenches, and now came the final push of the grunts up the hill, and so the grunts started advancing up toward where the enemy was, and this time there was no return fire, absolutely none. They kept on moving up. Didn't find any counter fire, and they eventually made it to the top of the hill, and took the top of the ridge line. But by then the North Vietnamese had left. We could see the fortifications they had dug into the hillside when we went up a little later to check things out, but they had left. And so here we were, the proud owners of this mound of mud and sand and trench line, in the middle of Vietnam. And it had cost us probably cost the Marine Corps guys probably 10 or 12 killed, and I don't know how many wounded out of a company of men. That was maybe 35, 40 men. That wasn't very much of a victory. And how many we killed of them, I don't know. There was no bodies to be found. It was whether we had inflicted massive damage on them or not, I don't know. The trenches were really deep, well protected. They had thick straw mats that went over the top of them that they couldn't be seen from the air. And at that point, it was decided that the Army would take over the position. And so the Army flew in, well, I guess they were called slicks at the time. They were like Hueys. And the slicks landed on the LZ that we had blasted out of the jungle. And as they landed, he handed out pizzas to everybody. They handed out pizza pies. Can you believe it? I still can't. You know, and all the Marines were scarfing down the pizza pies. And they brought in some more slicks and more and more Army men. And they finally, on their return, they extracted our team. We were flown out of there on the Army choppers, and that was really the end of it. There was some other things that happened during that time period, but I think after 3 videos, I've covered enough material, and I hope you enjoyed that, my stories. If you do, please subscribe and leave a comment. I appreciate a like would help, and hopefully you'll join me for another story of a Force Recon Marine in Vietnam. Thank you.